the Bottom Line Podcast. I'm Jimmy Finizzi alongside Neil Villapiano. We hope you're doing well. As always, thank you so much for taking some time out of your day to listen to us. We really do appreciate it. Before we get started, questions, opinions, you know the deal. On Twitter, at BottomLineWMCX, at The MVP Show. Use hashtag BottomLine. Leave a voice message on Anchor as well, or at Anchor.fm. And please make sure you subscribe on YouTube and on Apple, Google, and Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. It is there. Just search for the Bottom Line Podcast, but please include my first name, Jimmy. So, Neil, before we get started with what we want to do today, I realized something during the last episode that we did this week.
Do you actually have a trivia question this time?
Unfortunately, no, I don't. But I did realize something else. This podcast, in general, has over 100 episodes, and I am surprised that I did not keep track of this sooner. I have to go back and actually do the math on how many episodes we exactly have. But
so
going
Tuesday
back
is 100?
What's that?
Tuesday is 100?
At least over 100 from when I last checked.
Wow.
So I have to actually go back and do the math to see how many episodes that we actually have back to when it was, just little old me doing this back in 2017, back in January, and back in like Your Listen, SoundCloud, Mixcloud. And by the way, if you want to get some entertainment and listen to those past episodes, you can just search for the Bottom Line Podcast. Like I said, include my first name, Jimmy, when searching for it anywhere, including on yourlisten.com, SoundCloud, and Mixcloud, or wherever you listen to podcasts. But anyway, so over 100 episodes. As soon as I get the math correctly, then we will let you guys know. Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And as soon as we find out exactly how many episodes, we will let you know next week. But for those that have listened,
I think we should do like a live special if it was possible. We do like a live.
You know what? That would be awesome. We should definitely.
I feel like that would be kind of like a cool way to celebrate.
We should definitely do that. But if you have listened since the beginning, thank you very much. I really do appreciate that. If you're just listening, welcome, and we thank you. If you've been listening since Neil officially came on board, thank you as well. Bottom line is, whether you've been listening at all, thank you. We really do appreciate it from the bottom of our hearts, and the support means an absolute ton to Neil and I. But anyway, with that being said, Neil, we're going to have a bit of fun today because it's an interesting top 5 list that we have. That's right. We're bringing this back. And yes, I will have a trivia question next week. I promise you that's not going away.
While I do my list, you can look up one.
What's that?
While I do my list, you can look up one, and then we could just say it at the end. That's fine.
Yeah, that's fair. We can do that.
I don't think anybody's going to care.
Yeah, you can clearly tell we're professionals. But anyway, today's going to be a fun top 5 list, and kind of an interesting one here, as we are going to reveal our own list of the top 5 underrated play-by-play announcers. Now, what do we mean by underrated play-by-play announcers? Well, they're play-by-play announcers who Neil and I think are absolutely terrific, but do not get the credit they deserve. At least not like they used to anyway. They're kind of flown underneath the radar just a little bit. So, with that being said, Neil, as always, if you do not mind, my friend, I will kick things off as we will get started right here on our top 5 list of the underrated play-by-play announcers. Starting off with my list with number 5. Now, I'm just going to say this right off the bat. This guy was almost number 1 on my list until I found out there was somebody else, until I realized, oh, wait a minute, there's this person. This person needs to be number 1. But number 5 for me is a guy who really, if you're a big soccer fan, you love this guy. Ian Darke. Now, this guy, I'm not a big soccer fan by any stretch, but this man makes me want to watch and stay tuned in, because the energy that Ian Darke brings to every single soccer/football game that he calls is absolutely unbelievable. It makes me not to want to change the channel. That's how much this guy is amazing. He currently calls soccer and football games on BT Sport and ESPN. And he was also, excuse me, one of the Sky Sports. He used to work for Sky Sports Network. Yeah. He was one of the big four, along with Martin Tyler, Alan Perry, and Rob Hawthorne. Yeah, going way back to those days. Yeah. He also worked alongside Jim Watt for boxing on Sky Sports. Yeah. And like I said, the energy he brings to each game will make you want to watch and stay watching and not change the channel. Ian Darke is number 5 on my list of the top 5 underrated play-by-play announcers.
Yeah, I mean, that's, coming from someone like you, that's somewhat of a surprise. I know you as to not be the world's biggest soccer fan, and I know you don't really watch it that often, but, Ian Darke is a very good choice. Somebody that for only a select few of people actually know who he is. As I've learned about the game over the last couple of years, and I've watched plenty of international games on ESPN, and Ian Darke is always the guy doing it. You're absolutely right. Like, he has a lot of energy. He really makes the sport a lot more exciting than, what you see on the screen. And, his calls have been great. I think there was one that was more, I guess, for me, iconic than anything. And I think you have to go back to the 2014 World Cup, which was it was the final between Germany and for the life of me, I cannot remember who Germany played in the
it wasn't World Cup Spain, final. Was it?
It might have been, but I could obviously look that up, but I couldn't really fully remember. It was it was I know who scored the goal. That's the funny part.
Again, you can tell we're professionals, so
right. Well, obviously we didn't discuss the list before we jumped on here. It was actually Argentina. They won 1-0.
Okay.
Yeah, it was 1-0, and Mario Götze, who right now I think either is playing for Borussia Dortmund or is on his way out. He scored in the 113th minute of that game, so it had to go to extra time to decide it. Thank God it didn't go to a shootout. But Mario Götze scored, and Ian Darke had a famous call saying he might have just won the World Cup. And I mean, it's true. Like, he basically, Mario Götze's goal ended up being the only goal. Germany won the World Cup and everything like that. So if you have a chance, go look up Ian Darke 2014 World Cup. You'll see Mario Götze's goal, and he has this great call with so much excitement, so much enthusiasm, and obviously it was enough to really showcase the moment that had happened. So that's a really good choice. And yeah, as far as underrated, he's underrated because he covers a sport that is not as popular here in the United States.
Yep.
But he does a fantastic job. He has a great mind for the game of soccer or football, however you want to, describe it. And he continues to do a phenomenal job to this day. So that was a good pick.
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate that. So yes, Ian Darke, if you have not heard this guy, I strongly encourage you to look him up. You will not be disappointed with how much energy he brings. Ian Darke, number 5 on my list. Top 5 underrated play-by-play announcers. Number 4. Now, this might be a little bit questionable, but in my opinion, this guy doesn't get enough credit for the amount of work that he does. The man does not stop working. I'm talking about Kenny Albert. The man never, ever stops working. And quite frankly, he does not get enough credit for it. The man is never home. He's never, ever home. The man never stops working. He works all 4 major sports, football, basketball, hockey, and baseball, and is currently the only sportscaster to do so. Think about that. The only current sportscaster to work all 4 major sports. Let that sink in for just a quick second. Okay, time's up. In 2016, Albert was nominated for the Sports Emmy Award for Outstanding Sports Personality for play-by-play, and a list that included fellow NFL on Fox announcer Kevin Burkhardt, Mike Emmerich, and even his own father, Marv Albert.
Wow.
And on October 25th, people seem to forget this too. On October 25th of 2009, Albert called the play-by-play of the Minnesota Vikings-Pittsburgh Steelers NFL game on Fox, and then hosted the New York Yankees locker room celebration after clinching the American League Championship Series that night. Then the following night, he broadcasted a Rangers game on radio, and on October 28th, he called play-by-play of the New York Knicks season opener on MSG Network. So he worked 4 events in 2 days. 2 days. Really think about this. This man is always on the go. I'm surprised. I wonder how much energy he actually has throughout the day. Do you think he drinks enough coffee throughout the day to get him through the day? So Kenny Albert, in my opinion, does not get nearly enough credit for the amount of hard work that he does. He's number 4 in my list.
Yeah, I mean, Kenny Albert is somebody that a lot of us at our age know who he is. You know, we've had the chance to listen to him broadcast many different things, like you mentioned. He does Rangers games. He does NBCSN hockey games from time to time. He does, he's done baseball on Fox. He's done football on Fox. I think he's done some Olympic hockey games, I think, as well.
Yes, he does. He has, yes.
And for me personally, I've actually had the pleasure of meeting and interviewing Kenny Albert a few times in my day, being at the play-by-play camps and the sports broadcasting classes up in Hofstra University. And so I've had the chance to meet him a couple of times. And yeah, I mean, he's one of those guys that he's the same person off camera that he is on. Like, he just has that persona. And I think the reason that you would, you asked, how does this man have this much energy? Well, it's primarily because he gets to do what he loves on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
He pretty much gets to work and talk about sports and go to games. And I remember, the legendary Mike Doc Emmerich said one time, and said, here's the great things about being a broadcaster. You get to go to the game for free. You get a good seat. And you get to talk about what you really enjoy. And I think that's what Kenny Albert has personified in his entire career. He definitely takes after his father. His father's still working. Now, obviously, he's not going to be covering the NBA during the, the Disney tournament, as I call it. But still,
which is a shame, but I understand why he's not going to.
Well, first of all, he's not going to go there, number one.
Yes.
Number two, it's probably going to be hard to do it, via satellite, I guess, or via remote.
Right.
But at the end of the day, you could see that both of them, they've developed this ability that they get to do what they love. They get to constantly broadcast sports, and they just love doing it. So Kenny Albert is another solid choice, somebody that I think, like you mentioned, maybe at times doesn't get the full credit because there's so many other personalities that have something about them that just kind of takes them over the top. But Kenny Albert, when it comes to just being a consistent, talented, good broadcaster, Kenny Albert definitely is up there without a doubt.
Absolutely. So Kenny Albert, number 4 in my list of the top 5 underrated play-by-play announcers. Number 3, unless you are a fan of the Baltimore Orioles, most people tend to forget that this guy is still broadcasting. Yes, I am talking about Gary Thorne.
Wow.
Again, unless you're an Orioles fan, most people seem to forget that this guy is still working. He has over 50 years of sportscasting experience, including 33 as a Major League Baseball play-by-play announcer, during which at the time he's covered 12 World Series and 17 All-Star games. He's also covered the NHL on ESPN, NCAA sports, and the Olympics, and he has also won 5 Emmy Awards. This guy does not nearly get enough credit as much as he used to when he worked the NHL and ESPN and baseball back in the 90s. Gary Thorne's number 3 on my list.
Yeah, Gary Thorne is, for me at least, he's one of my idols. He's one of the guys that I've grown up listening to, especially when I was watching college hockey on ESPN. He was the guy that was doing it all the time. He worked many Stanley Cup Finals for ESPN and ABC. And he has some great calls with so much enthusiasm. I probably have mentioned this before, but interestingly enough, his first big gig was actually being the play-by-play announcer for the Devils when they first came to New Jersey back in the mid-'80s. And what's funny is that he was replaced, or he left the Devils to go work national games, and he was replaced by none other than Mike Doc Emmerich. So it's kind of an interesting thing that the Devils have been lucky to have 2 of the greatest broadcasters in hockey history, doing these games. But yeah, Gary, he's done a fantastic job his entire career. The amount of enthusiasm and I think the thing that stands out the most is that he does a great job of setting a scene, setting a situation, whatever the case may be. He's a really good job of describing it, setting the mood and setting the tone for what, how big this moment could be, and that's great. Yeah, I've seen him time and time again. And yeah, he pretty much nowadays only does Orioles games. And let's be honest, it's not really the world's greatest situation to be in when the team is not playing well. But you know what? He still does a great job. People love him. And he's another one of those guys that, look, the only reason he's not retired, because I think he's got to be pushing 70 years old, I think.
He's 72.
72, is that he gets to do what he loves. He gets to constantly, broadcast games. And look, when you compare broadcasting baseball to broadcasting some other sports, it's not as stressful. You have a lot more time on your hands. You don't have to speak so quickly or try not to speak so quickly,
right,
because the game kind of slows down. So it works out in that way for him. I think he does live just outside of Baltimore. So again, it kind of works out on his end. But, definitely Gary Cohen has done a great job. Gary Thorne, excuse me. Gary Cohen is another one, by the way.
Honest to God, I did consider Gary Cohen. I did consider him, but he's just outside the top 5. I love Gary Cohen.
Yeah, I think
just missed the mark.
I think with Gary Cohen, the reason he could be considered not underrated is primarily because I think a lot of people know who he is because he's the broadcaster for the Mets. And the Mets play in New York, and they're a well-known franchise, and he's had a lot of iconic calls himself, and things like that. But, with Gary Thorne, at the end of the day, he's just one of those guys that can do it all. He's been there. He's done that. He's been in so many of the greatest moments, and he continues to bring a lot of, enjoyment and enthusiasm for whatever he's broadcasting.
Yep, absolutely. So Gary Thorne, number 3 on my list. Top 5 underrated play-by-play announcers. Quick recap here. Number 5, Ian Darke. Number 4, Kenny Albert. Number 3, Gary Thorne. Number 2, they call him the Rodney Dangerfield of broadcasting, and that would be Mr. Bob Euchre. Now, the reason why they call him the Rodney Dangerfield of broadcasting is because he used to be a comedian. And don't get me wrong, he still brings that humor to the radio. But
look at the movie season. Look at Major League. There
you go.
That's pretty much all you need to know.
There you go. Exactly. But he doesn't nearly get enough credit for his broadcasting as he did during his time as a comedian. This man has been the voice of the Milwaukee Brewers on the radio, who, by the way, is his hometown team for nearly 50 years. The man is in his mid-80s. And he is still kicking ass to this day. So a little bit more about Bob Euchre here. Like I said, he spent nearly 50 years as the voice of the Brewers. But here's the thing. Here's why I say he's more known for his humor. When he was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2003, he's remembered mostly for his hilarious induction speech. And if you haven't listened to it, please look it up. It is absolutely hysterical. He even made former President George H.W. Bush laugh in tears. That's how hysterical.
The senior or the – wait, hold on. Senior or junior?
George H.W. Bush.
George H. That's the senior, correct?
Yes.
All right, cool. As you can see, school did not teach me to remember who was who. All right, so.
That's all right. He was inducted into the National Association of Broadcasters Broadcasting Hall of Fame in 2012, and that same year, he got a statue outside Miller Park. He got a statue outside of Miller Park. All right. So, unless you're a fan of the Milwaukee Brewers, who's talking about Bob Euchre? Who is? Nobody I know. So Bob Euchre deserves a lot more credit for his broadcasting. Now, he is hilarious as a comedian. He's very, very funny. But his broadcasting career deserves a lot more credit. Bob Euchre's number 2.
Yeah, I mean, that's another choice that I didn't think about, and that's a really good one. That's one that and obviously with these choices, these are guys that maybe we don't talk about enough, and we don't expect. Bob Euchre is one of those guys that he is probably the only broadcaster in the history of sports to be able to broadcast 2 different teams at the same time. Obviously he broadcast for the Milwaukee Brewers, and at that same time he was doing Major League 2, and Major League back to the minors. I mean, he even did that one. It was he brought He brought that. He made us all laugh. He was an enjoyable broadcaster. But again, like when you listen to him, like actually doing games, he has his tone is probably the thing that catches you the most. He just makes the game more exciting when you listen to it on the radio. And the fact that he's been able to live out his childhood dream of broadcasting his hometown team for over half a century is an incredible feat by him. I think, if you look at the last 50 years, the guys who have been the most consistent with their gigs is probably Vince Scully with the Dodgers. I think John Sterling, maybe to a lesser extent with the Yankees, and definitely Bob Euchre with the Milwaukee Brewers. It's really hard sometimes to keep the same job for as long as these guys have. But the fact that someone like Euchre has been able to keep that job for so long is just phenomenal for him. And, look, the Milwaukee Brewers have not always been a great team. So obviously, sometimes as a broadcaster, you have to try to lighten the mood when things are not all positive. And I think someone like Bob Euchre has done a really good job of that. And now that the Brewers are actually a pretty competitive team and a good one, it makes the job that much easier. But yeah, I mean, this is definitely another one of those guys, especially in the history of baseball, that I think people don't always fully remember or don't really know off the top of their head. But I think that was a really good choice considering, his accolades. And I did not know that he had a statue outside Miller Park. I didn't know that.
Yeah, 2012, the same year he was inducted into the Hall of Fame.
Does Harry Carey have a statue outside of Wrigley Field? I think, right? I want to say he does.
I believe he does. I have to double check. I think he does, though. So I'm glad to see my list is getting some approval so far. So Bob Euchre, number 2 on my list of the top 5 underrated play-by-play announcers. He does have a statue outside.
He does. I think he got it. I think he got it the year after, either a year or 6 months after he passed, I think.
Okay.
I think so I think that makes sense.
Okay. No, fair enough. All right. So quick recap here. Top 5 underrated play-by-play announcers. Number 5, Ian Darke. Number 4, Kenny Albert. Number 3, Gary Thorne. Number 2, Bob Euchre. And as always, before we get to number 1, got a couple honorable mentions here. I only have 2 honorable mentions, and this was pretty easy for me to include.
Fair enough.
Vern Lundquist being one of them. Vern Lundquist, one of the most recognizable voices in sports, started out with college football for ABC in the 1970s, but when he went to CBS in the 80s, that's when his career really took off, and he became one of the most recognizable faces and voices in sports history. And if you haven't heard this guy, go look him up. He's a good one, tremendous.
And you know what's interesting about Vern Lundquist is that he became the main broadcaster for golf for many years while he was at CBS. And I think when you look at all of these done, I think that's what a lot of people maybe know him for, because golf is a pretty recognizable sport in this country. I think a lot of people, whether we believe it or not, actually watch golf on a daily basis or on a consistent basis. And Vern Lundquist was that voice for a long time.
I was gonna say just don't ask Don LaGreca to watch golf.
Exactly. But yeah,
golf is garbage.
I got a chance to listen to Vern Lundquist's last call, pretty much in sports, when he did the Army-Navy game a couple of years ago, and that was the last game he did. And you could tell, obviously, look, sometimes with broadcasters, they have to retire because they don't have a choice. It's, some guys, like we mentioned before, Bob Euchre and guys like Vince Scully and guys like that, they get lucky because they get to be there for so long and their health is good and everything. But sometimes for a guy like Vern Lundquist, it's just time to, move to that next phase of your life. And obviously, I know that Vern Lundquist probably would like to continue, but I think also, now he gets a chance to be around his family a lot more and just enjoy life, which is good. But, we'll always have great memories of Vern Lundquist. He wasn't always, let me put it this way. He wasn't always one of the most iconic people when it came to sports broadcasting. But again, I look at consistency and being, constantly doing well at his job. And that's what Vern Lundquist was. So that's that was a very good pick. If it's just a, honorable mention.
Thank you. And here's another honorable mention. Your guy for the Devils, Steve Kangelosi. Because I personally find his work to be extremely underrated, especially, and I can't believe I'm going to say this, for the New York Red Bulls. Because he actually makes me want to watch a Red Bulls game for once in my life. That's how good he is, in my opinion. It's just because his style is unique in a way. It's one that you really don't hear that often in young sports broadcasters. Now, I understand he took over for the great Mike Doc Emmerich, which is got some pretty big shoes to fill. But he is one of the more underrated voices in sports broadcasting, in my opinion. So Steve Kangelosi, another honorable mention for me.
That's probably even more surprising because I have not, look, I enjoy Kanji. I have from the time he took over. Definitely somebody that I think should get recognized a little bit more than he actually is now, because he broadcasts the Devils and everybody likes to, just consider the Devils to be, quote, an irrelevant franchise. He may not get the recognition that he deserves. He also works for MSG, which is the Rangers network, and things like that. But, Kanji does a really good job. I used to really enjoy his he used to do intros for every single game, and he was really good at it. Like, I really enjoyed listening to it because it got me ready to go for the game. It was a great thing. He has a lot of energy when you score. And what's fascinating is that some broadcasters, when they do multiple sports, they tend to have the same calls for the same type of action. Kanji is a little bit different. When someone scores a goal in hockey, he says scores, In soccer, he just says goal, which I found to be kind of interesting. Yeah. And, Kanji does do a very good job broadcasting the New York Red Bulls. And he's been in the New York, MSG network for a very, very long time. I mean, you could go back to the mid-90s when he really started to, get his career going. And, I think for a lot of Devils fans, he has been a joy. I have heard people, even some Red Bulls fans that are not fans of him, which I don't understand, but maybe it's just because I'm not listening clearly. But I think he's a very enjoyable broadcaster. And I think another reason he's underrated is because he's a local guy. Sometimes it's hard being recognized when you're a local broadcaster and not a nationwide broadcaster. But you know what? Yep. He's still a very solid one. Obviously, a lot of people would love to be able to take his job, but I think the way Kanji does things, I think he's going to be around for quite some time.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And by the way, speaking of the Red Bulls, shout outs to my former professor at Monmouth University, Matt Harmon, who also does Red Bulls for the radio.
Is he at Florida?
I'm sorry?
Did he go to Florida with the Red Bulls, or is he doing it? Do you know if he's doing it from home?
That's a good question. I actually don't know. I have to reach out to him and see if he's actually there. But shout outs to my former professor, Matt Harmon, because he's doing the Red Bulls on the radio, like I said. So shout outs to him. So
there's another underrated guy right there. I mean, he does everything.
Yeah, there you go.
Red Bulls, I think he pretty much does everything Monmouth that I can think of.
Yep. He's primarily known for Monmouth football on ESPN.
That's what
more like ESPN3, ESPNU. Like
on TV. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. I thought it was Eddie Acapinti that was doing ESPN.
He does the games with him. Acapinti does.
Oh, they do it together?
He does more play-by-play for basketball on ESPN.
Oh, that makes sense. That makes sense. But yeah, no, I mean, and I think also Matt Harmon works for Jersey Sports, I think, as well. I think he does cover some things for that as well.
I think you're talking about Shore Sports Network, right?
Yeah, Shore Sports. Yeah. Well, that's what it used to be. It changed.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Now they cover all of Jersey. They don't cover just the Shore.
Right. Yes.
I have heard. Yeah, no, he actually came to my high school in my senior year when we were preparing to go to States. We were on one of their shows.
Nice.
Which I thought was cool. So
very, very good stuff. So one last recap here before we get to number 1 on my list of the top 5 underrated play-by-play announcers. Number 5, Ian Darke. Number 4, Kenny Albert. Number 3, Gary Thorne. Number 2, Bob Euchre. Honorable mentions, Vern Lundquist and Steve Kangelosi. Now, I mentioned that Ian Darke was almost going to be number 1 for me until I realized this person deserves a hell of a lot more credit to me. Right. The one and only Beth Moetz. Beth Moetz is number 1 on my list of the top 5 underrated play-by-play announcers. If you have not heard this woman call a game unless you are a college sports fan, primarily college softball, because that's what she's known for, with doing games with Jessica Mendoza and somebody else. I forget her name. I apologize. But Beth Moetz, this woman is absolutely a tremendous broadcaster and does not nearly get enough credit for what she does. Almost nobody talks about her, like I said, unless
she does college football as well, if I'm not mistaken.
What's that?
She does college football as well.
I don't think she does college football, but I know she does.
I think she still does. Yeah, she still does.
Yep, she still does. But a little more information about Beth Mullins. Began her career in 1991 as a news and sports director for WXHC FM radio in Homer, New York, and is one of the 2009 inductees into the Greater Syracuse Sports Hall of Fame. She joined ESPN in 1994, covering college sports, including basketball, football, soccer, softball, and volleyball even. Imagine that. In 2015, Mullins became the play-by-play voice for the Oakland Raiders and now Las Vegas Raiders preseason TV broadcast, which she still does today. And in May of 2017, she became the first woman to call a nationally televised NFL game and only the second female play-by-play announcer in NFL regular season history when she called the Monday Night Football game between the Chargers and the Broncos. She also became the first female play-by-play announcer for the NFL on CBS in its 58-year history when she called the 2017 season's Cleveland Browns-Indianapolis Colts matchup with Jay Feely. This woman is absolutely tremendous. If you have not heard her work, please look her up. She has some tremendous calls. She makes me want to watch college softball, and I find it to be boring as hell. Think about that for a minute. She will make you want to watch college softball. And now I'm starting to get into it a lot more because of Beth Mullins. She is number one on my list of the top 5 underrated play-by-play announcers. She is severely underrated in my book and deserves a lot more credit.
Well, first of all, I would disagree with you to say that softball is boring. It's not by a long shot. That's kind of a surprise to hear you say that. But anyway, we won't go into that.
Yeah, that's another argument for another day.
I think if I'm not mistaken, Beth Moetz actually was a broadcaster for The Price is Right for like one episode last year.
I think you're right. Yes.
So that's kind of in case anybody didn't know that, there was a fun fact there. But I've heard her plenty of times, particularly with college football. I watch a lot of college football. It's one of my favorite things to watch year in and year out. And she's still doing it. She's been at ESPN for a long time. She continues to have an amazing success. She's one of the many Syracuse products, from that great broadcasting school. They do a phenomenal job up there in upstate New York. And she just continued. She's a trailblazer, without a doubt. She has continuously had to fight the odds of, a woman broadcaster, someone who's had to, unfortunately have to try to prove all the time that she knows sports, which is unfair, obviously. If she knows sports, she knows sports. Let's leave it at that. You know what I mean? Like, let's not try to make this.
And believe me, she knows her sports. She knows what she's talking about.
She would be somebody that I wouldn't be I actually would be really okay with her replacing the Monday Night Football crew. I think I don't think they have fully determined yet who's going to be the Monday Night Football crew for.
Well, she better be in consideration.
Well, I mean, she's done a great job, and yeah, I have listened to her do softball. When it comes to softball, she's the main girl. Yes. She's the main person that they go to, especially when you get to the College World Series. She does it. I've actually heard her do college baseball as well.
Yes.
So, you have different things. So she at times will do the sports that maybe don't get shown as much on TV, but she still does a great job. She's been consistent her entire career. And I'm glad that she's been able to stay in the business we've had, and I hope that she continues to, because she's a really good one. She's one of the very talented ones in the business, no doubt about it.
Yep, absolutely. So that wraps up my top 5 list of the underrated play-by-play announcers. And that being said, Neil, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you, Jimmy. So I kind of went like all over the place when it came to people that I picked. Actually, two or at least one of the people that I picked are not really play-by-play people as more as they are, hosts and people that have done stuff like E60 and things like that. And I'll kind of go into that in a minute. But my number 5 is actually in a sport that a lot of people don't watch unless it involves the Triple Crown, and that is Larry Kalmas. Larry Kalmas is one of the most iconic broadcasters in horse racing history. I think he's been doing it on NBC the last 5, 6, 7 years, where he calls the big races, the Kentucky Derby, the Preakness, the Belmont. And I've only watched the Triple Crown the last 3 or 4 years, haven't watched it that much. And I remember, how incredible it was when I think it was American Pharoah who finally won the Triple Crown after like 30, 40 years. And then like 2 years later, you had Justify win it back in 2018.
Right.
And Larry Kalmas he gets really, what I love about like horse racing announcers, and particularly Kalmas, is this. As the race gets, like as you get closer and closer to the finish line, you can tell that his voice starts getting, higher and higher and more excited because he's doing this buildup. It's pretty much a buildup because, again, it's only one lap. It's not like multiple laps. It's one lap around, and there you go. And Kalmas, as you start, like he's pretty calm, everything's fine, and he keeps going, and it goes up and up and up and up, and then he gets around to that last stretch, and he's really like amped up and really, really, really excited. And when he gets whoever wins, he tries to come up with a really, really iconic call right on the spot. And he's done it. He's done it several times. And I've really enjoyed listening to it. He makes like listening and watching the Kentucky Derby, the Preakness, any sort of horse racing event, really fun. And really, really, like, it kind of like your blood pressure definitely goes up because, especially if you're involved in it, whether, you bet on some horse or things like that, like he really helps you get like more and more amped up and everything like that. And he's just one of those guys, because it's a sport that is considered to be more of the, I guess you would call it a gentleman's sport is the way I would describe it. It's like in the same realm as like polo and things like that.
Right.
But he's definitely a gentleman and a scholar. He does a great job, and I really enjoy it. And I'm not even that big of a horse racing person, but when I do watch, and usually it's a Kentucky Derby and the Triple Crown, basically, he's the guy that I listen to, and he does a great job, no doubt about it. So that would be number 5 on my list. So I'm sure you probably had no idea who Larry Kalmas was.
No, I couldn't tell you. No.
Yeah, no, it's all good. It's all good. Number 4 is actually Linda Cohen. From
ESPN.
ESPN.
Linda Cohen. Okay.
Yeah, Linda Cohen's been, she's been working at ESPN for about 20, 25 years.
Yes.
Been there for a long time. She was like the main host of SportsCenter when I was a kid. And now obviously she's not on the main screen as much. She does talk a considerable amount of time on hockey.
Yes.
I think I want to say she's a Kings fan. Am I wrong about that? Kings fan or a Rangers fan? It was one of the two.
She's a Rangers fan.
Rangers fan, okay. Because obviously she lives out in LA. But yeah, Linda Cohen, what's great about her is that she knows sports. Like she knows exactly what's going on, how to, what type of questions to ask, and how to present the information that's being given to her.
Right.
And that's the thing that makes her entertaining. And again, this is not a broadcaster, this is more of a host. This is somebody that when you turn on SportsCenter, she's one of the first people that you see. And she's very good. She's incredibly good with the way that she brings us the news and brings us the sports. I think nowadays on SportsCenter, it's not really about the sports and the information that we need. It's all about the characters. It's all about, these different type of things. They don't get to the sports in the way that they used to. When Linda Cohen was really like at the top of her field, when she was, there, it was all about that. When ESPN and SportsCenter cared primarily about giving us as much sports as possible and giving us the information that us sports fans needed, she was really good at that. She got it. She didn't, beat around it. She just went directly towards, getting getting the information, sending it to, sharing it with us so that we could get it in a timely manner. And I think that's what's great about her. She constantly defends the sport of hockey. I remember when Max Kellerman made that absolutely horrific take a couple weeks ago. She went on Twitter and just completely blasted him because it was just like
I think even hockey players bashed Max Kellerman for that take.
Well, because again, Max Kellerman, that take was one of those takes where, look, he doesn't really watch hockey. He doesn't really, because he doesn't care, because he's not a fan of it. So he's going to make assumptions based off of how he honestly feels about it. So, but Linda Cohn really went after him for saying that, and so that's the thing that you have to give credit to, because she loves the sport. I think it's annoying as all hell that the only type of hockey you can see on ESPN is if you have ESPN Plus and watch it with Mike Levy and who is the former head coach of the Kings that's there? Barry Melrose.
Yeah, Barry Melrose.
Linda Cohn also. I think Linda Cohn also has done some college hockey at ESPN as well with Buchagras. So you have those four guys who have all been there long term and were very big into hockey when hockey was actually given a crap by ESPN. But now that they don't care, this is the world that we live in now, unfortunately. But but Linda Cohn, she's great. She's phenomenal. She knows so much about sports in general. She gets us the information as precise and as quickly as we need it. And at the end of the day, the best thing about her, she just did her job. She did her job very well. And I wish that people would recognize her more, but that's the way the world works. So that was number 4 on my list.
All right.
And I think number 3 is going to be somebody that you would say, yeah, Neil, this is really out there in left field, and I don't know why you went there. But number 3 is somebody that I think older people might know, but not people our age. And that is Jane Chastain, or as they called it, the pioneer of women's
broadcasting.
Exactly. Well, see, obviously for you and I, because this is our field, we know who she is. But for people that may not know, I'll give you a quick rundown of her. I found this on a website called stadiumtalk.com, and I'll just read the little bio that they have of her. Chastain is widely considered the pioneer of women's sports broadcasters, paving the way for the likes of Donna Di Verona, Leslie Visser, Robin Roberts, and others. After early television work in Georgia and North Carolina, Chastain got her big break in 1967 when she was hired by Miami's WTVJ and rose to host her own show and become a station sports anchor. In 1974, she was hired by CBS and became the first woman to ever serve on the an NFL broadcast. She also worked some NBA games for the network, as well as tennis and bowling. I think tennis was probably the one that a lot of people know her for.
Right.
If you're a tennis purist, that you've heard her, especially if you were around during that time. You've heard of her. She's very good. She's very, very good. She knew a lot about tennis, more than most people, even nowadays.
Yeah.
It's kind of sad. She only spent 1 year at the network, however, before ending her sportscasting career as an anchor in LA. In the 1980s, Chastain left sports for the world of political commentary, where she remains active today.
Right.
Yes, she was big in the sports world, but in a really interesting way, she's become even more popular in the political world since she left in the 80s.
Right.
So you have to give her credit, because this is the thing that makes that is impressive to me, is that you could go from something like talking about sports to then talking about politics and knowing just as much. And that's the thing that separates the good broadcasters from the great ones. The great ones are the ones that are able to get the information, understand it to the highest extent, and then present it to the people listening, and so that people can understand it as well as they understand it. So that's what made her good. And again, because she was the first woman to broadcast on an NFL game, and one of the first women to broadcast for NBA games. She was the first woman that really helped young girls say, you know what, I want to do that. I want to be in front of the camera. I want to talk about sports. She made it possible for women to be given this opportunity. So a lot of the women in the business today, they have Chastain to thank. because without her, we wouldn't even be close to where we are when it comes to women being accepted in the sports broadcasting and pretty much broadcasting world in general. Okay?
Absolutely.
So that's so a tremendous job by her. Definitely somebody that I think the older generations would know, but obviously younger generations are like, who in the hell is she? Well, I think that explaining that, and giving that little bio, I think helped out quite often. So Jane Chastain, number 3, the pioneer of women's sports broadcasting. And so far we've gone through my first 3 of my top 5 underrated broadcasters. Again, number 5, the legendary horse racing commentator Larry Kalmas. Number 4, Linda Cohen from ESPN. And number 3, as I just mentioned, Jane Chastain. Number two is probably one of my idols, and he's a lot younger than a lot of the other ones that I like. Jimmy, you definitely know who he is. And this is the second, I don't want to say second tier. I really don't. But I'll go with the backup broadcaster, play-by-play guy for the Yankees and the Brooklyn Nets. He also does WNBA games. He's pretty much the voice of the WNBA.
I know where you're going.
And he's done plenty of NBA games, and is none other than the host of the R2C2 podcast on Ryan Rucco.
Yes!
Ryan Rucco.
One of the funny thing, I was so close to putting him on my list. Yeah. I was this close.
Yeah, no, he's
I'm ashamed of myself.
Here's something interesting about Ryan Rucco. Ryan Rucco went to one college to start off his career. I don't remember where exactly. And then one of his friends suggested that in order for him to take the next step in his broadcasting career, he had to go to Fordham, which is in New York City. He ended up going to Fordham. He became one of the most recognizable people in broadcasting at Fordham. He was respected by all, and he went to a lot of seminars, and one of them actually had Michael Kay there. And Michael Kay liked Ryan Rucco so much that he gave him an opportunity to work on the Michael Kay show before Peter Rosenberg came along. And so for a while, the Michael Kay show was Michael Kay, Don LaGreca, and Ryan Rucco. And it worked out so much that the Yankees actually gave him an opportunity to broadcast a couple games here and there when Michael Kay was taking a vacation or was not feeling well. Last season, if you remember, Michael Kay was out for a couple of months after he had a surgery on his vocal cords, if I'm not mistaken by that.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Ryan Rucco was the guy that took over. And he did a phenomenal job.
Yes.
He always does phenomenal. And he has so much energy. I mean, for someone that young, I think he's in his mid-30s at this moment.
Yes, he is.
I think he's 33, 34, around that frame. But he is absolutely awesome.
Yes,
I love him.
Yes, he is.
He does Yankee games very well. He does Brooklyn Nets games great. He makes watching the NBA even more exciting because he and Doris Burke, I mean, you talk about two of the smartest people.
Have you heard him paired with QB Brown?
Oh,
I mean, are you kidding me?
Yeah, oh yeah, and I'm amazed QB Brown is still working.
Yeah,
QB
same.
What, QB Brown in his 80s at this point? I mean,
mid 80s.
Right, he is up there. There's another underrated guy right there.
Oh my God!
I think he's better as I think he's better as a broadcaster than he is a coach. That's me. But
you're not wrong.
But Ryan Rucco, he does it all. See, this is the thing. He's one of those guys that could just do anything.
Yep.
He has his own podcast. He does Yankee games. He does Nets games. He does NBA games on ESPN. He does I just missed it. WNBA games. He does it all. I think he's done boxing from time to time. I know he's a big boxing fan himself, but I don't know if he's actually done boxing. I could be wrong. I could totally be wrong. But Ryan Rucco is one of those guys that I look up to because he's Mr. Do-It-All. And I love it. I absolutely love it. He was just doing I think he was just doing the Yankee inter-squad scrimmage 1 or 2 days ago.
Yeah, the other night, yeah.
Right. And he's he has done a phenomenal job, and I hope I wouldn't be shocked. Let me put it this way. When Michael Kay retires at some point, which is still going to be a while from now.
Right.
But I think Ryan Rucco would probably be the guy that would take over. But that's
absolutely. And he should. Right.
The only other guy I could see taking over for Michael Kay would be Bob Costas. I remember when Costas did that weekend series against the Blue Jays, I want to say. He was great. I mean, that was a guy. I mean, it was like Bob Costas said he always wanted to be the broadcaster for the New York Yankees. And he finally got his wish.
There you go.
And I said, you know what? If Ryan Ruocco's busy and Michael Kay needs a weekend off, just call Bob Costas. He's not doing anything right now. Just have him come to New York. I think he lives in New York City.
I think you're right, yeah.
Just have him come do a couple games. It'll be great. Like, he does a great job. And I wish that they would be giving him more opportunities to broadcast games, just baseball in general. Because I enjoy him more than I enjoy Joe Buck for baseball. I mean, I think Joe Buck's really good. He does really good with football,
I agree.
But, as far as baseball, I'd rather choose someone else. But Ryan Ruocco is number 2 on my list. So honorable mentions. I only have one. And it was somebody that we mentioned before, Gary Cohen. Gary Cohen,
okay, nice.
Let's face it. He might be the only reason that I would ever consider being a Mets fan. I mean,
wow.
Because I love his home run call, it's out of here. Like, it's the high note right away. And him, along with Keith Hernandez and Ron Darling, Steve Gelbs, Kevin Burkhardt for a while. Fun fact, I don't think people knew Kevin Burkhardt got his big break working for the Mets.
Yep.
They are arguably the best broadcasting crew in baseball. They are just great. They know so much about the game. Gary Cohen has enthusiasm. He knows how to set the mood. He knows how to get people amped up in certain situations. Ron Darling knows everything there is to know about, every single pitcher. Keith Hernandez pretty much knows everything else around the game of baseball. But Gary Cohen, I don't think people talk about him enough as far as when you talk about top broadcasters in not just baseball, but in sports.
Right.
He's definitely up there. And I would have put him up on my top 5 if it wasn't for this guy. Now, number 1 is probably a surprise. And you're a Rangers fan, so you might not like who I'm going with here. But number 1 is a guy who just celebrated his 36th birthday yesterday. And that is the Islanders play-by-play announcer, Brendan Burke. Yes.
Wow.
Brendan Burke is one on my list.
All right.
Brendan Burke has made watching Islanders hockey entertaining as hell because he has great calls. He's been a meme on the Islanders social medias for months. And I really enjoy how much, how well he knows the game of hockey, how well he knows what's going on, how much he knows about each different player. And he has this great call from last year's playoffs. It was just before game 1 between the Islanders and Penguins, where he basically was like, we're finally back in the playoffs. Let's go. And it gave people chills. It's phenomenal. And he's still young. He's 36. I mean, he's going to be around for a long time. He's going to be around for a long, long time. And he's done a great job on MSG with the Islanders. Islanders fans love him. They've loved him since he came here. He actually also is he's the main play-by-play announcer for the Premier League lacrosse on NBCSN. He does nationally televised games from time to time on NBCSN for the NHL. And he originally got his first big hockey job with the Utica Comets, who are the minor league affiliate to the Vancouver Canucks. That's where he got his big break. And he eventually got his opportunity with the Islanders. And I think he replaced Howie Rose, who was originally there. And, Brendan Burke is a guy that, when it comes to hockey broadcasters nowadays, he's definitely number 1, other than obviously Doc Emmerich on my list. But yeah, I think Brendan Burke doesn't get enough credit when it comes to the hockey world. I have mentioned it before to some people, and some people didn't even really know who he was. But if you're from the New York metropolitan area, you probably know who he is. He's done a great job, and I hope he continues to remain on the island for a long time because I'm looking forward to him continuing to do what he does best. And okay, the Devils just announced their new GM. Random. That was so random. I know. Don't shoot me. It was really random. Okay,
breaking news.
And they just announced Lindy Ruff as the head coach of the Devils. Okay, so we know that now.
Yep.
Great. So now I have something to talk about on the Devil's State of Mind podcast.
Hey, awesome. There you go. That's it.
I have things to do now.
By the way, you should tune into that every Monday, by the way. Fantastic stuff.
Thank you. But yeah, that was my top 5 list of the most underrated broadcasters in sports today and in history, I guess.
No, that's a solid list, and I'll be honest, as a Ranger fan, I actually do like listening to Brendan Burke. I think he's extremely underrated. So I'm with you there. He's a guy that's going to be around for a long, long time. Now, that wraps it up for our list of the top 5 underrated play-by-play announcers / broadcasters in sports. Now, before we wrap things up, I found a trivia question for you, my man.
Thank you, God. All right, what's the trivia question? Hit me.
All right, so we're going baseball here for this.
Don LaGreca. The answer is Don LaGreca and nothing else.
All right, so here's your question.
What?
What Major League Baseball pitcher holds the record for the most complete games in his career?
In his career? Ooh. Is he a Hall of Famer?
Yes, he is a Hall of Famer.
Is it Nolan Ryan?
Incorrect.
No, Tom Seaver.
Good guess.
Tom Seaver.
Incorrect.
Did he pitch for the Dodgers?
He did not.
Jeez. He pitched in the National League?
Nope.
No, American League. Okay, cool. Raleigh Fingers? No, it's not it. Not it. Good dream. Complete games. Ooh, this is really tough. He pitched for the Yankees at all?
Nope.
Blue Jays?
Tigers.
Is it Ty Cobb?
It is not.
Not Verlander, is it?
It is not Verlander.
Kenny Rogers?
Give up.
No. I don't give up easily. I don't give up easily.
All right. Okay.
Only the Tigers? Only Tigers?
Let me see here. He pitched for... Let's see. Actually, no, I'm wrong. He pitched for the Red Sox. I apologize. The Red Sox.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
Oh, geez.
I'm sorry. Not the Tigers.
Not Pedro, is it?
It is not.
Babe Ruth?
Nope.
Is this an 80s guy? Is this an 80s guy? Like, what era are we talking about?
You got to go all the way back to the 1900s for this guy.
I hate you. I hate you so much. It's not Honus Wagner, is it?
It's not him, no.
All right, who is it?
The answer is Cy Young. Cy Young pitched 749 complete games over the course of a 22-year career.
He pitched for the Red Sox?
Yes, he did.
Who else
From 1901 to 1908.
When else did he pitch for them? Who else did he pitch for?
He also pitched for, he pitched for the Cleveland Spiders back in the 1890s. He pitched for the St. Louis Cardinals as well. He pitched for the Boston Americans / Red Sox, the Cleveland Naps, and the Boston Rustlers. And he also managed the Red Sox for 1 year as well. And he also won the World Series in 1903 with the Red Sox.
Okay. Oh, it was good. That was actually really good.
He like I said, he pitched 749 complete games in his career. 749. Only 3 pitchers have even started that many games. And those 3 were Cy Young, Don Sutton, and Nolan Ryan.
Don Sutton, wow. Jesus.
Yep. The more you know, man. So the answer, thank you. And on that note, that will wrap it up for this episode of the Bottom Line Podcast. If you agree or disagree with our list, and if you want to give your own thoughts as well, if you want to leave your own list, let us know on Twitter at BottomLineWMCX, at The NVP Show. Use the hashtag BottomLine. Don't forget to leave a voice message on Anchor as well, or at Anchor.fm. And please make sure you subscribe and leave a like and a comment on YouTube as well. And don't forget to subscribe on Apple, Google, and Spotify as well, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Just search for the Bottom Line Podcast, but please include my first name, which is Jimmy. And be sure you subscribe to Neil's podcast as well, the Mofobo Network podcast. I'm surprised I haven't mentioned that in quite some time, and I apologize.
It's been about a month. It's been about a month since.
Has it really been that long since I mentioned your podcast? I'm sorry.
That long, yeah. No,
I'm sorry, man. But no, anyway.
I posted a new YouTube video yesterday.
Yes, he did. You should check it out. Really interesting stuff. Yeah. So subscribe to Neil's podcast, Mofobo Network Podcast. and also his YouTube channel as well. And be sure to listen to the Devil's State of Mind podcast as well.
Yes,
but,
we'll have a bunch to talk about this week.
Fun. Yep, absolutely. But Neil, another fun week has come and gone. Please tell your family I was asking for them. I'm looking forward to doing it all again real soon. We actually have another pretty fun idea for a top 5 list that we're going to do already for next week. And we'll give it away right now. We're going to do the top 5 overpaid athletes. Overpaid athletes.
So does that include Patrick Mahomes?
What's that?
Does that include Patrick Mahomes now, or do we have to wait 2 years before his contract actually starts?
Excluding Patrick Mahomes. Sorry.
Oh, okay, cool.
Excluding him. He is not included in this list.
We'll put him as an honorable mention. Nothing big. It's just that he's reportedly going to make something like $1 billion, half a billion.
Half a billion, yeah.
Nothing crazy.
Which is ludicrous, if you ask me. I still think it's ludicrous.
Not going there.
I stand by what I said in the last episode.
We did this on Tuesday. You're done.
Yep.
You're done.
Yep. I'm officially done. I've said my piece, and I stand by it. But anyway, Neil, enjoy the rest of your week, man. I'm looking forward to next week.
Same here, my friend.
All right, my friend. For Neil Villapiano, I'm Jimmy Finizzi. This is the Bottom Line Podcast. See you in the next episode.